Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Shut it down. We have 50 years since the assassination of one of the greatest human beings in America. And I'm sorry to say, I wasn't around 50 years ago, but I don't think much has changed. 50 years ago, we know there was hoses and dogs and straight up brutality. Public brutality. Unfortunately today, this type of brutality is more subtle. It's sinister. And it seeps its way into our education system as well. Larry spoke of truth. Let's talk some truth right now. There are more police in our public schools, in our community centers, in our public housing, in Lexington Avenue holding machine guns, than I care to see. And the more reformists tell you it's for your own good, the quicker they will pluck your existence and tell you, trust me, wait, just wait, it'll get better, just wait, it'll get better. And they'll walk you right into the jail cell. It'll get better. And you're waiting 30 years, it'll get better. Brothers and sisters, I'm young. But I hope that April 2nd, this People's Tribunal in Harlem at the Black National Theater brings together the communities most affected by state violence. And that the people most affected can tell you their stories of how they've been waiting and they are so tired. That there are some bruises that cannot be fixed by Obamacare. That there are some doors and some apartment buildings that have been raided by the police that can't be fixed by $15 an hour. No. Much more needs to be flipped. And when the communities come together and when they can provide for their own, then we'll have revolution. But the longer we wait for the capitalist system to take care of us, the longer we will wait. I'm urging you all, April 2nd, keep that at the forefront and the background of your mind. Tell your mama, tell your brother, tell your baby's mama, April 2nd, come out to the Black National Theater so we could talk some truth, so we could remind ourselves of the amnesia and the willingness of the state to kill our own. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
So I'm honored to be on this panel, and I'm glad to be celebrating Malcolm X. His ideology and his legacy is the reason for what I do and how I live. Although I'm not happy to be celebrating his assassination, I do appreciate the fact that we take this tragedy that was supposed to kill the movement and use it to community build and make what this resistance is something that's a movement and not just a moment. So I really appreciate that. So what I do is Cop Watch. I'm on the East Flatbush Cop Watch. We have teams all around the city. If you're interested in joining, please come talk to myself or Jane. At the root of it, Cop Watch is a community self-defense tactic. It's a practice of monitoring and documenting the police. So when we walk the streets, we film the police and make sure that the person being stopped is not abused, and it helps to de-escalate the situation. I think at the root of it is community love and respect and solidarity. It's community love, respect, and solidarity. I think just like Malcolm, Cop Watch has a bad name, and we kind of have to deconstruct it too. I think whenever people of color try to protect themselves, it's seen as a threat against the state and violent, and that is not something that we should be putting forth. Excuse me, I'm just gonna move this. The Black Panther Party was the first organization to have organized cop watch, and back then they were able to carry their guns in plain view. So there are images of them carrying their guns and their law book in their hands and protecting their community. Although today we don't have guns doing cop watch, we use our cameras and we're able to shoot back at white supremacy and ignite movement. So I think that's just as powerful. Malcolm X inspires a lot of what we do. He was all about talking to the people on the streets where they're at, and that's something that we do. We go into the areas that are most affected by police violence, and we speak to the community. And we have 5 main goals when we do go out. The first one is documenting police activity and offering that video if they end up in a legal situation, and offering them legal support also. We prevent and de-escalate abusive policing. We've seen times where a cop was getting real aggressive and then we came around with the cameras and they kind of calmed down. So some people don't like to be filmed, but we assure them that we're not going to put it on any social media. We just let them know that we're here to protect them and we're here for them, that the cops are we're here to watch the cops. Also, we want to build with, educate, and mobilize our community. It's one thing to just film, and another thing to empower them with information on how to protect themselves. So we go out with Know Your Rights palm cards, and we don't just give it out. If they are willing to stop and talk to us, we talk to them about police violence that they've experienced, how they can empower themselves and join our movement, and other things they can do. I think as marginalized communities, we're taught to not trust each other, not talk to each other, not love each other, and Cop Watch is trying to reframe that narrative when we go out in the street. And it's cool when you go out and people tend to recognize you and say, like, keep doing what you're doing, and they know that we're there to support them. It's a really powerful experience. The next thing we do is we spread a culture of Cop Watch. It's not a huge team. We have a lot of people, but we can't be everywhere. So I think if they see people on the street filming and watching the cops, it'll spread a culture of that, where other people are like, let me take out my camera, I have an iPhone or whatever, and I'm going to watch these cops as well. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that giving them that power to do something, because it's very jarring when you're getting all these news stories of people being gunned down and you're like, what can I do? And I think the smallest thing we can do is put on our camera and film the cops, if you feel comfortable enough to do so. Because I think that's why movements for Eric Garner has happened, because people were brave enough to do that. And supporting people who do film the cops, like Ramsey Orta. And the last goal is we want to shift the power out of the hands of the state and back into the hands of the community. Just like Malcolm wanted, he wanted self-determination and to police ourselves. Excuse me, I apologize. I just wanted to put out a few quotes that inspired me from Malcolm, my love. The first one is, nobody can give you freedom, nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man or a woman, you take it. So as cop watchers that are descendants of that ideology, I think we learned that we can't really rely on the state, the government, the laws, and especially our police to kind of give us our rights or give us justice. So we have to demand it, and if we don't get it, we take it ourselves or create it for ourselves. The second quote is, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent, and that's power, because they control the mind of the masses. So we, as cop watchers, are trying to reframe that narrative that Black lives do matter and they are worthy of being protected. And I think that's something that is very important. And I came into realizing as I was becoming a part of this movement. It's sad to know that we don't value ourselves, and we're taught to kind of keep that mentality. So I think most of all, when I started this movement, it was like angry, and I think that's how they saw Malcolm. Like, he's angry, he's tired of this, like he wants to be violent. But in the end, I realized it's about love. Like, the reason I'm doing this is because I love my community, I love my people, and I want better for it. And I think they tend to demonize him and this movement, and we have to switch that narrative up. And the last quote is, I don't even call it violence when it's self-defense, I call it intelligence. And I think, yeah. Exactly. I think they tend to see him as this militant person who's angry all the time, but they don't talk about the conditions that made him that way. And I think that is also a part of the Cop Watch movement too. The last thing I want to say is that Cop Watch stands on the fact that Black Lives Matter. It is about community love, power, and self-determination, along with the protection of Black life, because we've been seeing that with the statistic every 28 hours a Black life is taken by a vigilante or a cop, that this is not the case. So we want to take the power back in our hands and this community and just start a new way forward, because I think there's something other than what we have here, and we have to believe that this is possible in the first place. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right. It's an honor to be here to celebrate the legacy of Malcolm X with you all and be on this panel today. One of the things I think is important in talking about the legacy of Malcolm X and the time he lived in and his activism to the Black Lives Matter movement, right, is to really think about the social context that he was talking about and how it still resonates today, right? Touching on what Alexia and Simone were saying, I first wanted to start off with an excerpt from a speech by Malcolm that sounds as if it could have been given right after Ferguson, right? This speech was, Monica quoted a smaller excerpt from it. So this was given a week before his death in Detroit on Valentine's Day 50 years ago. All right. Okay. Since the federal government has shown that it isn't going to do anything about it but talk, it is a duty. It's your and my duty as men, as human beings. It is our duty to our people to organize ourselves and let the government know that if they don't stop the Klan, we'll stop it ourselves. And then you'll see the government start doing something about it. But don't ever think that they're going to do it just on some kind of morality basis. No. So I don't believe in violence. That's why I want to stop it. And you can't stop it with love. Not love of those things down there, no. So when we only mean vigorous action and self-defense, and that vigorous action we feel we're justified in initiating by any means necessary. Now the press, behind something like that, they call us racists and people who are violent in reverse. This is how they psycho you. They make you think that if you try to stop the Klan from lynching you, you're practicing violence in reverse. Pick up on this. I hear a lot of you all parrot what the white man says. You say, I don't want to be a Ku Klux Klan in reverse. Well, if a criminal comes around your house with his gun, brother, just because he's got a gun and he's robbing your house, brother, and he's a robber, it doesn't make you a robber because you grab your gun and run him out. No. See, the man is using some tricky logic on you. And he has absolutely got a Ku Klux Klan outfit that goes through the country frightening black people. I'll read down a bit. One of the shrewd ways that they use the press to project us in the eye or image is in the eye or image of a criminal. They take statistics. And with the press, they feed these statistics to the public, primarily the white public. Because there are some well-meaning persons in the white public, as well as bad-meaning persons in the white public. And whatever the government is going to do, it always wants the public on its side, whether it's the local government, state government, federal government. So they use the press to create images. And at the local level, they'll create an image by feeding statistics to the press, through the press showing the high crime rate in the Negro community. As soon as this high crime rate is emphasized through the press, then people begin to look upon the Negro community as a community of criminals. And then any Negro in the community can be stopped in the street. Put your hands up. And they pat you down. You might be a doctor, a lawyer, a preacher, or some other kind of Uncle Tom. But despite your professional standing, you'll find that you're the same victim as the man who's in the alley. Just because you're black and you live in a black community, which has been projected as a community of criminals, this is done. And once the public accepts this image also, it paves the way for a police state type of activity in the Negro community. They can use any kind of brutal methods to suppress blacks because they're criminals anyway. And what has given this image? The press again, by letting the power structure or the racist element in the power structure use them in that way. A very good example was the riots that took place here during the summer. I was in Africa. I read about them over there. If you'll notice, they referred to the rioters as vandals, hoodlums, thieves. They tried to make it appear that this wasn't. They tried to make it, and they did this. They skillfully took the burden off the society for its failure to correct these negative conditions in the black community. It took the burden completely off of the society and put it right on the community by using the press to make it appear that the looting and all of this was proof that the whole act was nothing but vandals and robbers and thieves who weren't really interested in anything other than that which is negative. Powerful, powerful, powerful. So what has changed, right, is the question, right? And I think that leads to a question of tactics and why we must continue to shut things down, right? And yes. And for me, the Black Lives Matter movement declares, right, that we cannot continue to let this country talk about black violence and black criminality while ignoring the multitudes of violence faced by black people and people of color underneath this criminal, racist system and nation, right? This is what the Black Lives Matter movement is giving us, right? And it's a continuation of the human rights movement that Malcolm spoke of. When we say the police are killing us and the press says black criminality, when we say the prison industrial complex is killing us and they say black criminality, when white people justify the killing of black people, when the police force justifies stop and frisk and broken windows policing, and when the United States criminal justice system, prison industrial system, and the U.S. nation state itself justifies the decimation of communities of color, it is using this belief, this perpetual belief in black criminality. And just like Malcolm said, they are skillfully taking the burden off of the society itself for its failure to correct these negative conditions, right? The Black Lives Matter movement reminds us that black people did not create the conditions of segregation. We did not create the ghetto or the poor neighborhoods in which we are concentrated. We did not deny ourselves access to wealth that our ancestors created, to fair housing, to decent education, and to fair access to health and steady employment. This is what the Black Lives Matter movement reminds us. So, there's often a lot of critique about the statement in and of itself, right? Black Lives Matter, right? But Black Lives Matter is not just a call to point out the violence of police forces across the country, but it's to point out the continued legacy and history of racism in which all of our lives have been made not to matter within this country. So it's not just a statement of truth put out in a world that refuses to hear our claims about racism, but it is a rallying cry for all of the dispossessed, all of the oppressed, to stand up and to say this must stop by any means necessary. Thank you.
Comrades, brothers and sisters, I'm definitely not going to be as amazing as that talk, but I just wanted to focus a little bit on a specific issue that is affecting the Black liberation movement globally. And this is, it's important to keep in mind that Malcolm X always, his conception of the Afro-American includes those people of African origin in Latin America as well. And in Latin America, just like in the United States, there's also a struggle for Black liberation that we must not forget about. And this can be some of the two cases I wanted to bring about that are especially painful to hear about in today's news. Are the first one is the mass exodus of Garifuna people from Honduras. The Garifuna people are African indigenous community that are native to Honduras and Belize and Guatemala. The second case is the discrimination against Haitians in Dominican Republic. That's another issue that's very important right now. And you know, I just wanted to remind everyone that, you know, Malcolm X, if he were alive today, would have supported those movements in Latin America. And he began to really expand his view later on, as Larry mentioned, to really have a scope of African liberation that encapsulates the whole world, and especially Latin America, because Latin America and Africa have such an intimate and close history. So with the case of the Garifuna people, who are of African origin, they're basically, their ancestral lands in Central America are being privatized by the U.S. Backed governments. So basically all of the lands are being privatized by U.S. corporations in Central America, and these people are being forced to leave and come to the United States. Now, one of the issues that's happening is there's a mass exodus, especially of Black Honduran women who are coming to New York and the United States. And basically, after being captured by immigration, are being forced to wear a tracking device on their ankle, which resembles shackles in a very scary way. So you have right now, as you speak, about, you know, over 100 women in the Bronx, you know, Black Honduran women who have shackles on their ankles, tracking every move they make, and who are soon going to be deported back, who face that real possibility. As well, right now, as we speak, there are Haitian people being, you know, beaten up, lynched, everything in the Dominican Republic. And these are the remnants of colonialism, and also this is the continuation of imperialism in a very interrelated way. And what's interesting is the shackles that are being used on the Black Honduran women are produced by the same companies that invest in prisons for African American youth to be locked up in. So it really just goes to show you how connected this struggle is, that, you know, there is a class nature to this oppression as well. It's, you know, let's not forget that it's not only state violence, but it's capitalist state violence. It's a capitalist system and this profit motive and this whole oppressive system that's doing this to against the Black liberation movement. So I just wanted to, you know, raise that point about Latin American you know, solidarity with the Black liberation movement. It's a given, you know, when we say Black Lives Matter, for sure we understand it as also Black lives in Latin America as well. And we should look to examples like Cuba, where you have Black women who are running the, you know, who are the policing agents, basically. Well, not really police, but the community, the heads of the community. These are Black women and mothers and women who are actually, you know, taking care of community affairs and not some external militia from a white supremacist state. So Latin American solidarity with Black Lives Matter movement, Malcolm X really would have wanted to as well stress that point in terms of the context of the issues that are affecting Black people in Latin America right now. And yeah, thank you.